So you've made the decision that batteries are right for you and you want an advanced, more sophisticated battery system. I'm Warren Miller, Director of Sales and Marketing for Paradise Energy Solutions.
And I'm Larry Byler, Director of Estimating for Paradise Energy Solutions.
Great to have you, Larry. So if I'm looking for an advanced system, what's that battery system going to do for me?
So there's a couple of things that to consider here when we're looking at what a battery system does for a consumer in terms of backing up loads. For the advanced system can do a surge capacity of about 8.4 kW per battery inverter, which means that when a consumer is looking at the loads they want to back up, if they have loads like well pumps or motors that have a higher surge load, we can go up to 8.4 per battery inverter, 8.4 kW, and a continuous rating of about 5.75 kW per battery inverter. On the battery side then, as far as total kilowatt hours that can be stored, we can go between about 8 and 100 kilowatt hours for the battery system.
So what does that mean to me as a consumer? What type of appliances or loads can I run with that size system?
So with the advanced package, we can now consider looking at whole house backup as an option, as a potential option. But let's assume that you only want to back up a few loads, a well pump, 2 freezers, and 4 light bulbs, and we'll say they're the more efficient LED light bulbs, so 4 13-watt LED light bulbs. So there's 3 things to consider when trying to figure out how many battery inverters, how many batteries do I need. Number 1, can the equipment that I'm installing handle the starting or the surge loads if all the loads were turned on at the same time? So in the example that we have here, our surge capacity is 8.4 kW. So for the well pump, the 2 freezers, and the 4 light bulbs, if we were to start all those loads at the same time, we could handle the surge load of all those loads starting at the same time. The second thing then to consider is the running load if all the loads were running at the same time. And in our example, again, our 5.75 kW of running watt availability from our inverter does allow us to run all these loads at the same time. And then thirdly, can the batteries hold enough kilowatt hours to power all of those loads for as long as I want them to? And in our example, each battery could provide about 3 hours of runtime. So for the example that we have, it would be a good use case for a well pump, 2 freezers, and 4 13-watt LED light bulbs.
Great. And what are some of the limitations of the advanced battery package?
Yeah, so there's a couple limitations. You know, when we're looking at whole house backup, typically there's a limit of the total load that can be put on a system. So a typical house in the US, one that's not too large, could probably fall under that limit where our system could, in theory, back up the entire house under normal load conditions. Now, one limitation is if you're considering having the system interact with a generator, there's typically a limit of generator size of about 23 kW. But this system has a lot of horsepower in terms of how it interacts with a generator. That's one of the neat things about the advanced battery package. So if it interacts with a generator, what it can do is significantly reduce the amount of runtime that generator has to have. So instead of the generator starting and running for every load, it can start up, charge the batteries, and then stop and let the battery system run the loads for a period of time. One thing to consider, if a customer is going to utilize a generator to charge the batteries, the investment tax credit may be reduced to some degree. So consult your tax advisor for your situation if you're looking at that. As far as the amount of solar that can be used to back up the battery inverter and the amount of battery inverters per system, we can't go to huge proportions, but we can do up to 6.7 kW AC of solar for every battery inverter on the system. And then we can do up to 4 battery inverters per system. So this would cover the vast majority of whole house backup situations and would cover a pretty large solar array that would be able to be used in backup mode.
Great. And what would this cost me if I wanted an advanced system and I was thinking about whole house backup?
Yeah, so our smallest advanced system, 2 battery inverters and 2 batteries would be about 35 to 40,000, somewhere in that range. And then if you're looking at four inverters, 4 batteries, more of a whole house backup situation, we're probably more in the 70 to 80,000 range. And then if you want to expand that, 4 inverters and 12 batteries, where we're looking up close to 100 kilowatt hours of battery storage, that's probably more in the 150,000 plus range. So we're looking at 35,000 to 150,000. And then the cost is a little bit higher if it's not installed with the solar array.
Great. Thanks, Larry. Thanks for your expertise. Just to recap really quickly, the advanced battery system costs anywhere between 35, 40,000 all the way up to 150,000. And if you're looking for that whole house backup, you're probably starting in the $70,000 range or so. Keep in mind that the surge capacity is still something to keep an eye out for, regardless of which system you go for. And that the nice thing about the advanced system is that it has some interoperability with your generators if you choose to have a generator work with it. So once again, thank you, Larry, for your expertise.